Welcome back to the MP podcast, where we talk about all the things that are involved in being an active ager, living independently as long as you can. So today I want to talk about hips. Hips are actually part of our core. And I don't know if people really think about that because I think a lot of times when we think about core, we're thinking abdomen, right? All the things in here, maintaining glutes, your abdominal muscles. So you got to do crunches, and maybe people think about their back, but that seems to be kind of it. So today I want to talk more about the hips, which are so important to be able to stand and walk in the most efficient way possible. So I want you to think about maybe when you've watched people walk. Maybe you've watched yourself walk or felt yourself walk. Have you ever seen those people where they take a step and their hip just drops down, drops down? Sometimes it's both, but more often than not, I find it's one side more than the other, and that hip just kind of drops down every time they go to take a step. And that's usually an indication of weak hip muscles. Our pelvis is supposed to stay level when we walk, right? So when I pick up this leg here and my pelvis has to hold itself up. So if I don't have strong muscles, when I pick this leg up, bloop, this side of the pelvis is going to go down. So it's actually the other side, the other hip that's weak. Many times people think, well, it keeps going down. It must be this side, but it's actually not. It's the opposite side. Because when this leg gets picked up, this leg over here has to hold that pelvis stable so it doesn't bloop, drop down because of lack of support. So maybe too much information, I don't know, but it's important to understand how we walk and how that hip, how the pelvis gets stabilized with those muscles around the hip joint. The glutes are the main ones. There are others that are involved as well, but the glutes are the really the powerhouse of your lower body. So in order to keep the pelvis stable, they need to be strong. If they don't keep your pelvis stable, then you're going to have, of course, that drop that I talked about. You might find that you lean over that leg because you kind of have to compensate for it, right? So you got to lean over it to get yourself more stable before you step forward. Steps will get smaller because if you're not standing on a stable leg and the hip, you're not going to be able to advance that other leg very well, right? You're going to be quick to put it down. And so that step is going to be shorter. And then if your steps are shorter, that means you're having to take more steps to go the same distance. So imagine if we're both walking 50 feet and I can do it in 25 steps, but it takes you 50 steps. We're going the same distance, but you're picking up and setting your foot down a whole lot many more times. And that's more tiring. So it's really more efficient, safer, less tiring to take that longer stride. But if your hips aren't strong enough, that's going to be difficult. So what can we do about it? Well, there are exercises that we can do, and we will get to that. I'm going to give you a link as to some exercises that you can do to increase the hip strength. But the important thing is to understand the consequences, right? I mean, not only are you walking irregularly and it's not as efficient, but that can also create more joint pain because you're having to compensate. You're putting more stress through that joint. And so that can actually lead to more pain. And not just in the hip, that can lead to pain down to your knee and foot and into your back. So sometimes people will come in and they'll say, well, my back hurts or my knee hurts, when it really comes down to the hip isn't stable. And so their body is compensating in a way that's causing a lot of stress on the other joints. So not a good thing. So you might also feel wobbly, right? If you're not feeling safe on that leg, you're taking that short step, you don't feel confident, your risk of falls is going up because of those rapid steps and instability. You might find you need to start holding on to something, using a cane or a walker, because that leg doesn't feel like it's going to hold you. So all these things start this downward spiral of more debility and increased risk of falls. Climbing stairs becomes more difficult. Our hips are really important in stabilizing us as we go upstairs. And as soon as you start dropping that hip, you now have to actually pick your knee up higher to compensate in order to clear the floor, getting onto that next step. So you have to work harder. You start relying more on your quadriceps, your thigh muscles, to pull you up onto those steps because your gluteals aren't doing what they need to do. And as soon as you start putting more pressure on something that doesn't normally take that much, you're going to start taking on more pain. And then you become more reliant on a railing or an assistive device. You start tiring more because, again, it's not efficient, right? And then going downstairs can get harder too, because you can't control your pelvis as you lower yourself down. It's all really important. So if your hips aren't strong enough to control your pelvis, control your steps and your movement, your knee absorbs more force. Your back may start to tense up because it's trying to compensate as well. And then your confidence starts dropping. You start becoming maybe a little more apprehensive with mobility. You're more fearful of falling. Even if you don't fall, you start getting more fearful. And if you become more fearful, you start moving less. That means you get weaker and tighter, and then you can't move as well. And so then you get weaker and tighter. It's like this, right? This never-ending cycle. So as soon as you guys find that there's some issue, I want you to reach out to someone. It could be me or another therapist or even a personal trainer. Just reach out to somebody. If you're not walking normally, please don't chalk it up to your age. Okay? I hear this way too much. Well, that's just because I'm getting older. But it doesn't have to be that way. So please, please, please reach out to someone, okay? So let's talk more about how the hips can lead to the low back pain. So when because they are teammates, right? I think that's the most important thing you need to understand. Everything's connected. They're teammates. They have to work together. I use the analogy of the tug of war a lot of times, that our muscles and such need to work together. And while sometimes one might work against the other, they need to still work equally so that one doesn't overpower the other and the other just breaks down. So when your hips aren't strong enough, your pelvis becomes unstable, right? We talked about how this pelvis drops down. Well, let's think about what happens further up the chain here, right? If my pelvis drops down, now my spine is like, whoa, it's getting kind of pulled. So those muscles at the spine have to overwork. They have to work harder than normal to try to pull that pelvis back up to where it's supposed to be. Over time, that can cause the low back to start getting tight, weak, and painful. A lot of people talk about the SI joint. My SI joint is out. Well, maybe there was an issue with the hips. Some weakness there in those joints caused the SI joint to kind of slip out of place. And then, of course, all that leads us to become tired and fatigued when we're just trying to normally walk. So science research has actually shown that a lot of people with chronic low back pain, a lot of them have this hip weakness and altered mechanics, as we call it. The muscles aren't firing the way they're supposed to, and so you're walking kind of funny, and then that causes more problems down the road, up the spine and down the leg as well. So it's like this domino effect. The weak hips can cause knee pain, can cause back pain, cause IT band irritation. I've heard several people say, oh, my IT band is so tight and painful. And they go to therapy for that. Okay, but why? Why is it tight and painful? Maybe it's the hips. Weak hips can cause your balance to be off, can slow down your walking, increase your fall risk, and reducing your confidence. That's huge, huge. As soon as you don't feel confident, you don't move as well. So, you know, your health risk becomes an issue, right? The risk of you becoming more debilitated and not being healthy in general. I mean, if you're not moving as much, you might start to add weight. Your heart and lungs aren't getting the work that they need, all because you're not walking well. Because if you're not walking well, you're not going to walk often. So you see how this domino effect can kind of play in. So why does that matter to you? Well, if you want to be independent, you need to be able to move well, right? You need to be able to walk safely, need to be able to move confidently, going up and down stairs, not being super reliant on railings or assistive devices. You need to be able to get up and down out of chairs easily and not be straining your back. That can cause pain. All that can happen if you don't have strong hips. But the beautiful thing is, we can strengthen hips. So just because you're 70 or 80, even 90, doesn't mean we can't help that. We can improve it to some extent. Muscle tissue is adaptable well into our 80s and 90s. Resistance training is super important. It can really help with the hip stability, which then can help your walking speed and your overall mobility. You are never too old to use resistance for exercise strengthening. It's just a matter of doing it safely and having someone help you to figure out how to do that. Having the right weight, using the right exercise, having good technique and form. But it's absolutely possible. Doesn't mean I'm going to have you lifting 100 pounds, but we'll figure out what the right weight is for you. So I want you to kind of pay attention to how you're walking, or maybe how your loved one is walking. You can kind of assess each other or self-assess yourself. If you find that your hip is dropping when you walk or just lift one leg up, if you're trying to stand on one leg, if that hip drops, could be a problem. If you tend to lean sideways when you walk, right? Really putting weight over that one leg to get the other one forward, you might have weak hips. If stairs are feeling harder than they used to, it might not be your knees or your thighs. It could be weak hips. If you have recurring back pain, outer hip pain, that could be due to weak hips. And if you struggle to get out of a chair, especially low chairs, that could be weak hips. Now, I'm not saying that's for sure. It may be something else, but it could be weak hips. And even if it's not weak hips, let's figure out what is the problem. What is causing you that issue that you can't do these things well? And let's try to fix it. So, again, like I said before, there are exercises that you can do to really isolate those muscles to help strengthen the hip. And I'm going to attach a link to a video to show you those exercises separately. But just to kind of go over them, you could be standing and walk sideways. You could just kick out to the side. Those are a couple easy things you can do. If you're lying down, if you're lying on your back, you can have your knees bent and be picking up your hips from a lying down position, or lying on your side and raising your leg up to the side. Now, each of these exercises, they're easy to cheat. The side hip exercises are particularly commonly cheated because people are just using other muscles and they're not really paying attention to form. So when you watch the video, please pay attention to the form. It really does matter. It's not that you're not going to get any benefit out of doing it incorrectly, but you're not going to target the muscles that we're trying to target that are going to help stabilize your pelvis and improve your walking and mobility. So doing things with good quality is much more important than how many repetitions you can do or how high you can raise your leg. It's not about that. It's not about kicking the moon. It's about good controlled movement. So please take a look at those videos. Do a little self-check of yourself. You know, kind of doing a little look, watch yourself in the mirror or something and see if you can see a little discrepancy or if you feel yourself shifting. Ask your family what they think about your walking. You can always come to me if I'm in your area. If you're not in this area, ask someone in your area, professional near you, if you have any concerns, because we really do want to keep you strong and flexible and mobile for as long as your body will hold out. So that gets you going. I hope you all work on some strong hips this week, and we will chat again next time. I hope that helps.